Well, good morning, students. I'm astronaut Steve Smith. We are so thankful for you to be with us today. We're also incredibly proud of you being with us today. We know that you're taking time out of your very busy lives to collect information, to take action as you start to seek your goals. We're welcoming people from all over the country and perhaps other countries. So if you are outside of California, please say hello to everyone on the chat. Let us know what state you're in or what country, and we'd love to hear from you. You'll hear many pieces of advice today from all of us. The first one I'll just mention right now, and that's to make sure that you take notes during these data gathering efforts you have in your life. And I suggest that you actually start a Microsoft Word file, for example, to take some tidbits of advice. If you don't have a Word file up right now, go ahead and take notes with a pen and pencil. The other piece of advice I'll pass along at this point is to make sure that you show gratitude during your journey to your ultimate goals. And so today I'd like to thank Morgan Borthwick, Kate Aspel, and Carla Scheifele for their help in setting this event up. And I'd like to suggest that along your pathway in life, you show gratitude. And so today in today's chat stream, you'll see an email address that you can go ahead and send your thanks to. It's community outreach at stanford.edu. So make sure you show gratitude during your whole life and during your trip to your dreams. My 94-year-old dad is sitting right over here, so I'll say thank you to my dad for all of his help in helping me make my dream come true. Now, today's agenda will have me just starting off quickly for a couple minutes. Then we have two incredible speakers, so I'll introduce both of them. That'll be about 20 to 25 minutes in length. And then we'll do a Q&A session, and you can submit questions through the Q&A feature on the Zoom. So make sure you put those in there along the way. We'll be monitoring those and curating those, and then we'll ask those to our special guests. Now, one of the major themes today is to encourage all of you to seek these huge goals in your life. I'll call them audacious goals. We want to make sure that you're thinking really big along the way. And for these audacious goals, you want to make sure they're goals that you have for yourself. They're not somebody else's goals for you. They're your goals. They're goals that will make you happy. And it's important that they're goals that will make you happy, because as you can anticipate, going from to your life today to your ultimate goal will not be a straight line. There'll be some bumps along the way. And in fact, on that subject, let me just show a couple of quick slides here. There we go. Okay. All right, so growing up here in the Bay Area, I had a dream to become an explorer, and I was watching the explorers of the day, both genders from multiple different countries doing multiple types of exploring, as you can see. But of course, my dream was really captured by the astronauts, and so that's why I decided to pursue that dream at a very early goal. And like you're doing today, gathering information, I was gathering information along the way through magazines and books. We didn't have the internet at times, so we had to go to the library to get all of our information. But in any case, I was collecting information along the way, and I was so inspired that, as you can see on the left here, I expressed my audacious goal in drawing. So that's a picture I drew when I was about 6 or 7 years of age. You can see I'm riding a rocket into space. And in fact, I've got this big red wrench. I'm ready to fix something in space. And 30 years later, that's exactly what happened when I got to the Hubble Space Telescope. On the right, you also see that my dream was enabled by my parents. This is a picture of me in Disneyland in Southern California in what's called the Tomorrowland section. And so it was my parents enabling my dream, helping me to think about the future and what it would be like. And as you can see, while I was there, amazingly, I met my very first astronaut. And you can see by my posture, even as a 7-year-old, I was so happy to meet one of my heroes and one of my role models. I was a little bit scared. You can see I left a little bit of a safety zone between myself and the astronaut. I will draw your attention to the woman on the left. That's my sister Paula. She's 5 years older than I am. You can see she was more brave than I was at that point. She was standing right next to the astronaut. But in any case, her dream was to be a law enforcement officer, which is pretty rare for a woman, especially in the 1960s. In any case, by following her path to her audacious goal, she became one of America's first women FBI agents for 25 years. And so I'm so thankful for having that role model in my life, and to have follow someone who made their audacious goal come true. Now, I've talked about the fact that that path will be bumpy. Mine was really bumpy. At the age of 15, I had a near-death experience where I was hospitalized just a few miles from here for 11 days. And it was a really serious situation. I almost didn't make it. A year later, when I was applying to go to the United States Air Force Academy, I went to have my flight physical at nearby Moffett Field, and they told me I was disqualified from becoming an astronaut. This is a picture of the Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs. And so I was devastated, actually devastated, because 100% of America's astronauts were military pilots. And so to me, the pathway to becoming an astronaut was basically blocked because there was no other way to become a military pilot. And so no doubt you're not surprised that I was devastated. Went home from that flight physical in which I was disqualified, had a good cry with my parents. But anytime you have a big goal that's going to make you happy, you find this inner ability to pursue the dream, to continue to pursue the dream. In fact, it's important along the way, and this is a great quote for the notes you're taking, that when an obstacle appears, you have to view it as being on the path to your dream and not blocking your path. Obstacles are on the path to your dream, they're not blocking your path. And so when these obstacles come up, you have to be really creative and really resilient to pursue your dream by coming up with other solutions. And I had thought that maybe someday the United States government would take non-military pilots to become astronauts, and that's exactly what happened. I had in the meantime, decided to go to Stanford, where I got an engineering degree, but I also got my pilot's license. One of the really important points I've made already is that you have to pick this dream that makes you happy. If you'll look at my face in this picture, in that little helmet there, this is a picture I drew when I was about 11 or 12. You'll notice this exaggerated smile on my face, and that's because I knew that dream would make me happy. And when you're going from point A to your dream and you have these setbacks along the way, if you're happy and excited about your dream, you'll find a way to get through to that dream. And I think our guest today will also mention that. In any case, I went on to IBM and started applying to NASA to be an astronaut. And unfortunately, over a 10-year period, they rejected me 4 times. So now I've been rejected 5 times. But because it was a dream that I was passionate about, I kept pursuing it. And I had that strength and that motivation to continue. And eventually had the chance to fly in space, which was a lot of fun and the subject of another day. But in any case, have this audacious goal. Along the way, as the setbacks come, be creative in getting around the obstacles because they don't block the path. Now let me introduce our very first distinguished guest, Dr. Iris Gibbs. Dr. Gibbs is an incredible person. You are incredibly lucky to have her here with you today. In fact, Dr. Gibbs, thank you for your time. She is an amazing person. I was looking at your biography, Dr. Gibbs, on the internet, and there's way too much to tell everybody. But in any case, to our students today, she's an amazing role model. She has many titles at Stanford. I think I counted 10. Pertinent today, she's the Associate Dean of Admissions at the Stanford Medical School and a radiology oncologist. She has 17 different clinical focuses. The main one, of course, is oncology. She has dozens of awards, including being named one of America's best doctors. Incredible. She has 162 publications. But I think the last thing I'd like to mention is that Dr. Gibbs is a first-generation college graduate. Amazing. Neither of her parents went to college. They also had financial constraints. And in fact, she overcame all of that. And when she came to Stanford Medical School, that's the first airplane flight she ever took. Dr. Gibbs, thank you so much. We're looking forward to hearing from you.
Thank you so much, Steve. And good morning to everyone. As mentioned, I'm Dr. Iris Gibbs, and it is a true pleasure to speak with you today about health careers. Now, first, how inspiring is Steve Smith? Quite amazing. But everything that he said actually applies as much for the pursuit of a career in healthcare as it does to becoming an astronaut. And so let me share my screen so that you all can see what we're talking about. And I'm always proud to showcase our students here. So hopefully you see the screen. So let's go ahead and move on into the presentation. I hope that all of you are here because you are considering a career in healthcare and considering these kinds of questions. How do you know that a career in healthcare is really for you? I like an interactive kind of thing. And so usually if we were in person, I would, reach out to the audience. So we're going to do it here in this virtual world. We're going to launch a poll question, and ask you about what you think, what you think are good qualities in that make a doctor. So I want you all to go ahead and start answering that right now. If you can, start answering that question. This question, what qualities make for a good doctor? So hopefully you will see your poll popping up, and we'll see if we have a number of individuals who have answered, and give you guys a few seconds to answer that. Okay, don't be shy. Okay, we'll give just a few more seconds with this poll. Submit your answers, and then we'll go ahead and we will share the presentation. Okay, great, let's see. Okay. Okay, so I am not seeing that there are too many responses, but I hope you guys aren't so shy. So what we'll do is we'll keep going. I am hoping that even if you didn't respond to the poll, that you are thinking about some of the things I'm thinking about. For sure, the path to becoming a physician or a healthcare provider can be somewhat daunting. And so, and perhaps looking somewhat like a maze like we see here, but the good news really is that between me and several of the other medical student speakers and Steve Smith, whom you just saw, this one should be a little bit clear by the end of today's presentation. So now let's get back to that question that we asked about those qualities. And hopefully, I'm thinking that you all heard from Steve Smith's presentation some of the essential qualities that we think are also aligned for medicine. Here are some of the essential qualities that we think are actually essential qualities for pursuit in a career in medicine. That tenacity and determination, and that was something that Steve mentioned quite a bit. In fact, it is really important that we know how to recover from what might be perceived by ourselves as failure. And I love the way Steve mentioned that obstacles are just on a path and they're not necessarily blocking a path. So that sense of tenacity and determination are absolutely key, because on the road for medicine, you will definitely hit some bumps along the way. And so it's important to be able to have that sense of resilience, tenacity, how you bounce back is really important. And then having this genuine concern and interest for people. It is not enough in medicine to be smart. I know that all of you all are smart out there, and there are several different occupations and career choices that smart people can actually pursue. On top of being smart and being able to acquire knowledge, people who go into the healthcare field absolutely must have a very genuine and sincere interest in people, and being able to be that vehicle to actually assist people. And of course, you need strong communication skills. And so that's why many of our students are not just simply taking science courses, but they're also learning about other disciplines and being able to be engaged in a way that they can develop those communication skills, because that is key in terms of connecting with patients. And the ability to think critically and to problem solve. Medicine is a constant situation where you're trying to solve problems that people will bring to you regarding their health. And sometimes it feels like a sort of a mystery that you're uncovering, and like you're a bit of a detective. And so those sorts of skills are qualities that are transferable into medicine. And even though I just mentioned all those things, you don't necessarily have to have those qualities completely sorted out at this time in your journey. That's what life is about. So many of these skills can be and attributes can be developed and nurtured over time. And that's why just throw yourself in there and follow your passions. The path generally begins first by completing high school and attending an undergraduate school. And it may surprise some of you to know that doctors have studied all kinds of subjects as an undergrad: the arts, the sciences, engineering, humanities, and guess what? Some astronauts are also doctors. After college, students then study at medical school for at least 4 years. Here at Stanford, many of our students will spend even more time, usually at least 5 years. And that's not because we select a group of students that are slower. It's because they are really continuing to do all sorts of things and making contributions to medicine, even during that portion of their journey while they're studying. And you'll hear a little bit more about that from our medical student later. And then after those years of medical school, they move on to more specialized training in what we call residency for another 3 to 7 years. And then several will even spend additional time with even more detailed specialty training we call fellowship. But the most important thing to remember is actually that when one pursues a career in medicine, it actually requires lifelong learning. Now, what are those ways in which we approach this? Here's another way of looking at it. And I like to emphasize this all the time. I always tell folks that the pursuit of a career in medicine, and particularly becoming a physician, is not a marathon. It's not a sprint. It is a marathon. And so that's why I like this depiction of this sort of path of a marathon, that you really just need to absorb each phase and not to move too far ahead, because each phase is really important to your overall development as a physician. Now let's take a look at what the sort of odds are out there. Each year, over 50,000 applicants here in the United States apply to medical school. And so let's focus on the right-hand side of this screen here. This one shows sort of a profile of the successful applicants. And it also shows what happens behind the scenes with this organization, the American Medical Colleges application service, who services many of those applications for us here at the medical school. But let's focus on the right-hand side. Enrollees, what are those qualities? What are the things that people who have actually been successful in enrolling into medical schools, what have they been doing? And I think that's how you glean what you should be thinking about doing if this is a career that you're interested in. Enrollees take rigorous course studies, and they typically participate in research, and you'll see those number of average hours of research is 1,300 some odd hours of research, which is quite substantial. And they are really engaged in community service and volunteer work, showing that genuine interest in people and patients. And so for this last year, 2021, and we're currently in our 2022 season, there were over 62,000 people who applied and over 22,000 who enrolled. Below that, you'll see some numbers, and those were just numbers we put in for our Stanford stats. We receive about 15 to 20% of the entire applicant pool each year applying to our school. So this past year, that year, it was 17.8%. And among those applicants who applied to our institution, we accepted nearly 3%. And then our final enrolled applicants from that entire pool of our applicants was about 2%. That number sounds a bit low, but I think what is most important is that the general odds is reasonably high. It's about at least a third. And so it's important to find the right medical school for you. And the right medical school oftentimes is defined based on whether or not there's alignment of your own personal goals and mission with the mission of that particular medical school. So the selection is made really looking for that kind of alignment. So each school has its own mission, what it wants to do in terms of addressing healthcare issues. And at Stanford, ours is being a premier research-intensive medical school that improves health, and almost every medical school really in their mission wants to improve health through some values. And our values are leadership, diversity and collaboration, discovery and innovation. We're here in this Bay Area and at Stanford widely, and in Silicon Valley. And so innovation discovery is really important. And we want to apply those in areas of patient care, education, and research. And as we continue to evolve, we are also layering on that our values towards social justice and equity. And so our medical education goal is really to bring in and to prepare a diverse group of physicians who will be prepared to be able to use their skills to improve the world. And so hopefully when people see themselves in our mission, they'll see that research is in the mission twice. So many of our students are heavily involved in these kind of scholarly projects, and you'll hear about that later. How is this selection done? Students are selected based on many of those qualities and factors that we just talked about, aligning with those mission of the institution and the values. So here we will be looking at leadership, research experience. How are they uniquely contributing a sense of empathy, service, innovation? All those things are really important. And of course, academic readiness is really important, but it's not the only thing, okay? Now, I told you that all the students apply to this centralized application process called Mcat, and I won't get into all the details of that because it's getting a little bit ahead of ourselves because you're, I think, mainly in high school. But in any case, this one gives you a sense of what are the things that ultimately we'll be evaluating. And this is what I call a portfolio. What are you going to be developing over time? What experiences are you collecting to be able to say something meaningful at this stage? So of course, there's biographical information, there's information about the schools you're attending, the kind of coursework. And in coursework, I want to see intellectual curiosity, that you've decided to spread your wings a little bit in the areas in which you delved into, no matter what your major is in college. And of course, there are essays that you tell us about yourselves, and then a list of experiences. And then others will be talking about you and being able to showcase your talents as well through letters of recommendation. And of course, there's that quantitative aspect, which is how you did well on in your coursework, and a examination we call the Medical College Admission Test, the Mcat. Many applicants will focus mainly on scores, and I will say, please do not do that to the exclusion of all those other things. But this is not, like I said, the only focus. Successful applicants have devoted time to expanding their fund of knowledge that demonstrates what I said, and I'll call again, intellectual curiosity. And as it turns out, this is a good preparation for the Mcat as well. So you kind of do two things with one approach. And so when we're looking at applicants, we are looking for a sense of what do they individually contribute to medicine, and looking at each individual applicant separate from each other. We do not like cookie cutter. We want applicants to really showcase how they are unique and what their unique path will contribute to medicine. We believe that diversity is an important value that is represented in all of our entering classes, from their professional interests, scholarly pursuits, demographics, race, ethnicity, gender, geography, culture, life experiences, and perspectives. And so we look at all that they bring, their experiences, their attributes, and the metrics, and we put that into focus. And that is what we call holistic review, and how we make our general selection. So to that end, at Stanford Medicine, using this holistic review means that the assessment is multidimensional, and it takes into account all of these things that we talk about. And in the end, how an applicant will add value. And then looking at this diagram, you'll probably recognize that it kind of looks like an eye. And so the focus in the center is on excellence. And so we try to see the context in which each applicant brings their own value. And we also use special types of interview techniques to be able to assess those non-quantitative, so non-score related, non-test related qualities, the empathy, the problem solving, and those types of skills. And this is our tool for assessing that, where essentially a student meets with an interviewer and neither know anything about each other. But then they're confronted with a standardized question in which the applicant will answer. And through those questions, because we've given specific questions to be able to assess certain qualities, we really get a sense of what I call those non-cognitive qualities that you can't necessarily measure just by taking a test. And so we encourage our students to be unique, to bring their full authentic selves to this journey. So I say, be like a stem cell and differentiate yourself from others and follow your passions. Because at the end of the day, when we're really meeting there with patients, the good doctor is someone who treats the disease. And so we know that people can be informed by the various studies and the intellectual pursuit, but the great physician applies more things on top of that knowledge and has those qualities to be able to really treat the patient who has the disease. And so this is what we want here at Stanford Medicine. And these are the kinds of students that we are selecting. Our timeline is quite long. So when one applies to our medical school and you've gotten all of those years of pulling together all those activities, which many of our students will say take some time even beyond undergraduate. Many are taking what we call growth or gap years. And then even in the process of applying, it takes nearly the better part of a year to go through that entire process. And I won't go into all the details here. And so this one is almost like a game board, but at each juncture, there are these qualities, these experiences that you are collecting over time. And so I want to end because I'm really interested in your questions, and I'm also interested in hearing Janelle, one of our medical students. And so what I will do is just make a summary that the medical school admissions process is a marathon and it's not a sprint. Developing this portfolio really takes many years. And I want you to remember more than anything that you are unique and that your individual experiences and contributions and perspectives actually count. And so when you are at that point where you're preparing and you know that this is the route for you, to prepare actively and to actively participate in the world around you, all of those experiences are going to be brought into what your lens is as a physician, and get outside of your own box and really enjoy this journey. So with that, I am going to conclude. And if there are any questions, and if you guys want to reach out to us, I can be reached at mdadmissions@stanford.edu. stanford.edu. So with that, I will end the sharing, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, Dr. Gibbs, thank you so much for taking time today to speak to our attendees. The attendees are so lucky to have your wisdom and to have you with us today. So thank you so much. And so our attendees, we have another fantastic guest for you to listen to today. She's a third-year medical student at Stanford right now, Janelle Chavez. Janelle, could you just tell us a little bit about yourself? And after that, we'll go to the questions and answers.
Morning, everyone. My name's Janelle. I am from Texas, a very small town called Port Isabel, Texas. I attended the University of Texas at Austin for undergrad, and now I'm a third-year medical student here at Stanford, involved in the Latino Medical Student Association, Christian Fellowship, research in medically underserved areas. And I'm really excited to be here today to talk to you about my experience.
Thank you very much, Janelle. No surprise, you're incredibly humble as a Knight Hennessy Scholar also here at Stanford. For our attendees, Dr. Gibbs talked about how volunteerism is part of this matrix of things we're looking for. Just so you know, Janelle co-founded the UT Global Surgery Student Alliance. She did a lot of volunteering in other countries like the Dominican Republic and Peru. No surprise, she was on the Dean's List and received several awards. And a really interesting point, Janelle, you didn't tell us about is that you're the two-time Texas state champion in spelling and vocabulary. So it's these amazing people that we gather here at the Stanford Medical School. So with that, we'll move to the questions and answers, and I will alternate between our guests. The first question is for Janelle. Janelle, there's actually several questions in the Q&A on this subject, and it's all about time management. Could you give us some tips on being a medical school student? How you maintain balance, in particular, how you took care or are taking care of your spirit and your mental health, and how you found times to not only study, but to pursue hobbies and to maybe even go on some trips. Thank you.
Yeah, this is a great consideration. Something that I started, I think in college definitely, is learning how to time manage. What was really helpful for me was a Google Calendar. It's very practical, have online, would schedule where my classes are every day. Or at the beginning of the week, I'll even wake up and do a to-do list for the week. I'll schedule out, okay, I need to have this exam Friday. I need to study this by Monday, Tuesday. And that kind of makes me feel a little bit more calm, seeing everything laid out, having in the calendar. And then I think in terms of well-being, I have I call them non-negotiables. I need like at least 7 hours of sleep. I would like to go to the gym like 3 times a week. I need to talk to my family or call my grandparents. And I try to make time for that. I say, I don't want to study on a Friday night, don't want to study on Saturday night. But because of that, I know that I have to be so mindful of my time before. So I think making time for things that are important to you, that give you joy, like for me, exercising and seeing family and stuff like that is really important to me, that I make time in my calendar for that. And then having a to-do list and goals for the week is really important. And I think Stanford's really great about that. I've been able to go on trips to Lake Tahoe and Yosemite with friends. The medical school does that. We're always going to San Francisco, and I think that's really nice to sprinkle in some things that give you joy, concerts. So I was very worried when I was starting college and medical school that there would be no time for anything. But I think as long as you have an idea of things that must get done, like exams, studying for exams, and things that you would like to do that bring you joy, I think it's able to manage. But for me, the most practical thing I can say is like get a calendar and a to-do list, and then I think that gives me a lot of peace.
Hey, Steve, I was just going to echo, I was smiling from ear to ear because when I met Janelle, I'm glad that question happened, that question came out there. Mm-hmm. She is like, I think among all of the students I've ever seen, one of the most organized individuals. I kept saying, how is it that she gets all of this done in the hours that she has? And when I finally really met with her and I saw how totally organized she was, I was just amazed. And what's interesting is that if you really want it, I said when I met Janelle, if you really want something done, you give it to a busy person who is organized as she is. But anyway, an amazing. I'm glad that you raised that question, and it was very much particular for Janelle, and it's one of the qualities I noticed immediately upon reading her file and interviewing her.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Janelle. We feel your energy and your spirit and your joy. So I think I'm going to make some changes to my time management skills based on your great advice. So thank you so much. Dr. Gibbs, thank you again for your great words today. What's the biggest misconception about the process of applying to medical school?
I think the biggest misconception is, and I hope that I did some justice on this today, that even though it's a competitive process, that people begin to sort of judge themselves a little bit too much based on the numbers, and do not give themselves credit. So the biggest misconception is that I can't do this, right? My thing is that you can do this. If you're following some of the guidance that we talk about, and you're true to yourself, and you believe, just as Steve believed, that he wanted to be an astronaut. And so despite certain things that were obstacles, potentially even perceived as potential failures, to really persist on. And so I think that one happens to be one of the biggest misconceptions, is that somehow perhaps someone like me, as people might judge themselves too much, can't be a doctor. All sorts of people can be doctors. And I have worked really tirelessly to make sure that the concept of what a doctor is, whether it is diversity that's based on racial, ethnic backgrounds, social conditions, and abilities. Sometimes persons with certain types of what they perceived as disabilities may think that they cannot be a physician. And I want them to also know that physicians come in all shapes, sizes, and backgrounds. So that's the most important misconception.
Thank you, Dr. Gibbs. One of the things I meant to mention to our attendees today is, as you are keeping notes, as you follow your journey, you want to look for people who inspire you, that are like you. So in our family, anytime that we discovered a great role model or a great story on the internet or in a magazine, we made note of that person, copied that article down, because they will help you get by these obstacles along the way. And when you do come to these obstacles, I encourage you not just to find options A, B, and C to get around those obstacles, but you're looking sometimes for option X. It's this wild solution to help you get around that obstacle. So keep open-minded. Dr. Gibbs, when did you first want to be a doctor? Could you just remind us of that? Was it as a young child or college or?
Yeah, for me, I don't think it was an instantaneous moment, but I did conceive of the notion that it was possible, I think, when I was very young. I had never, ever met a Black woman doctor, but when my dad asked me one day, I then was like, I think that one's something that's interesting. And it was in the back of my mind, kind of driving me a bit. But when I went to college, I really wanted things to be an open slate. So I did not focus just on that particular pathway. But in the end, it came back around as something that resonated quite well with me. So I'd have to say somewhere around 8 years old, but really in a more sincere way at the very end of college, once I had really explored a number of different kind of classes and things of that nature. And then I learned that what I was showing was intellectual curiosity. I was a chemistry major, but I also took, philosophy and anthropology and arts, and participated actively in arts of singing and music and things of that nature. Yeah, I think it was a journey for me, just the decision in and of itself.
Thank you for reminding our time just about the GPA. It's not just about the Mcat score. Many of the questions coming in have been about that. And again, it's this full picture, diverse person that we're looking for. As a matter of fact, one of our American astronauts going into space on Tuesday of this week is an African-American woman, graduate of Stanford, Jessica Watkins. She's a doctor, as I said, also, and she was also the top rugby player in the nation while she attended Stanford. Amazing, amazing. So we want well-rounded people, not only for people in medicine, but also when we go into space. Janelle, could you also just tell us briefly, and I'll have a follow-up question, when you first decided you wanted to be a doctor?
I think it was also at a pretty young age. I grew up within 2 miles of my 4 grandparents in a very small town in a rural area of Texas. And I saw a lot of the health problems that they went through, diabetes and heart disease and cancers and things like that. And I felt like medicine was always something we were talking about. And as I got older, started taking them to the doctor, and I thought, this is really interesting. And I think this is a really like compelling way to use my brain and my heart to really help people in really difficult times. And then I also had an interest intellectually in science that just came easier to me. And I really enjoy that during class. And I think having those experiences. Oh, and where I'm from, also my town doesn't have a doctor. There's not a lot in South Texas. And I think just the societal issues were also a big thing. So one, I love helping people one-on-one. I think science is really interesting. And then I think there are big problems with people getting access to healthcare, issues in policy and things like that, that I thought were really exciting. So I thought that on individual and societal levels, there was a lot that I could do in medicine, and that really interested me. And I kind of went through as a biology major in college, and it really reaffirmed that. Having more experiences shadowing doctors really affirmed that medicine was for me.
Fantastic, fantastic. Thank you, Janelle. Janelle, what's the best part of going to medical school, and what's the hardest part?
I think the best part is that it really is such a privilege to be there, like learning and to be there in people's most difficult times. It's really incredible what you see in the hospital, and to be in the operating room, to see these incredible things happening, and then to provide some sort of help to people in their most difficult times, I think is really amazing. I think another thing specifically about not just medical school, about Stanford, is that it's really, the people are really great and really kind. Like Dr. Gibbs was saying, there's a lot of innovation, collaboration. I'm one of those taking another year. I'm doing a journalism fellowship, working at CNN for a little bit next year and going abroad for a year. So I think that's really great about Stanford, is that there's so much diversity. But I think the hardest thing is the medical school is hard. I think it came in kind of knowing what to expect, but I just finished my step 1 exam, which is a big board exam. I studied for like 6 weeks, like all day. That was really difficult. I just finished my surgery rotation, 6 days a week, 12 hours a day, for 2 months. And it is difficult. There are some days where I'm like, man, I chose a hard thing to do in my life. This is kind of stressful. People's lives are in your hands. It's so much knowledge that you have to know. But then there are days, like I said, where you're helping some people, you have a great conversation with a patient who has a really difficult illness, or you call their family on the phone and give them updates. And I think, what else would I want to spend my days doing? Like, what else would I want to be doing with my time? I can't imagine me doing anything else. So I think it is really hard, but I think it's really, really rewarding, which is just an exciting place to be at as a student.
Thank you, Janelle. Dr. Gibbs, back to you. I think we've tried to make it clear today that this just isn't about people who want to be doctors, that there are many different occupations in healthcare. And so I want to give you the combination of 2 questions that we received today. The first is nursing school different from medical school, and how long does that take? And the second was similar. What's the difference between medical school and being a nutritionist, a dietitian, a nutritional science, and food science?
Great question. Firstly, I will say more than ever, the care of people in the healthcare arena is teamwork. It is centered on teamwork. And that's why when I was speaking, I was talking about health careers in healthcare. Now, as a physician, I went through those specific things for being a physician, but I could not do what I do as a physician without all of the other colleagues that are involved in nursing. We also have physician assistants, and our medical students here actually learn right alongside of physician assistants. We have respiratory therapists. We have other fields of technology. In my field of radiation oncology, I have physicists. So there's many of these other individuals who make up the entire team. And each of those journeys is a little bit different. Most are going to have the initial training being just a little bit probably shorter than becoming a practicing physician. But what I've learned certainly through my nurses and my nurse practitioners is that in many ways, in an almost more rigorously assessed way, our nurses are training constantly and things are evolving. And so even after their initial 4 years of having an undergraduate degree, they may begin to practice and take additional sort of courses every year. Many will then get additional degrees. And if you're a nurse practitioner, you may start off with an RN, you will start off with an RN and then take additional like master's level training to become a nurse practitioner. And so if you're a nutritionist, you will get a little bit more detailed training after your undergraduate years in that subject. There are some degrees or some practitioners in the medical field who may be able to practice with an associate's degree or with a specialized training that may be between 2 or 3 years. But I always say it takes teamwork to make the dream work. And I'm incredibly proud of my team here at Stanford Medicine.
Thank you, Dr. Gibbs. Janelle, once you got into medical school, have you found it to be extremely competitive, or are the students open to collaboration and willing to help each other?
That's one of the things I love most about Stanford is that it's so collaborative. I think one thing that helps that most schools are pass fail or it's different from college. College was like really intense, A, B, C, D, E, even plus or minus, and it felt like a little bit tougher. Environment, stressful, and then you have your peers that are also trying to do these things. It was just a little bit more stressful. I found that medical school has been a little bit less stressful than college in that regard. There's more you have to learn, but I think the fact that we're all here, we're just trying to learn and be good doctors takes off a lot of stress. And I love that about Stanford. And there are a lot of medical schools around the country that are that way as well and really promote collaboration. We even have like a shared box online where students from years past will put their study guides or will put like books that they have or resources, tips for different clerkships and rotations and things like that. And I think it's so amazing, so helpful. We have a class meme page where people are sharing things and complaining about similar things. And it just feels like we're all going through it together. And I think that's so nice about Stanford and think in medical schools in general, that we're all here, we're just trying to learn. And I think that's one thing that I've appreciated so much. The environment is really great. People are very kind and really willing to help one another, putting their own resources out there. And I found that it's been a really nice environment.
Thank you, Janelle. And we have about 10 minutes left. We're doing really well. Dr. Gibbs, 2 questions for you. Does the AAMC process cover all medical schools that you can apply to? And the second is, there's been multiple questions about how someone who's young still in high school can find some type of volunteer position to give them the exposure that they need to the business, to the industry, and also, of course, help move their career along. What are the things that maybe you've seen on applications through the years that people have done at that earlier age?
Yeah. So firstly, the question on the AAMC application. So it generally is covering applicants from all over, and it is the central repository. But just like a lot of other things here in the US, Texas is special. I think Texas has its own process. So many of the students, like Janelle, could have participated, who was from Texas, could have participated just in that, or could also participate in the AAMC as well. So by and large, the AAMC is the main repository, but some states, like I said, like Texas, might have its own application process as well. And the second part of your question, can you restate?
Sure. During their high school years, what are some opportunities that young people could pursue to investigate their interest in the industry, and also, of course, to move their resume and experiences along?
Right. So I think that at the level of high school, I think it's most important because you're just really just trying to get to know what you like, what you don't like, and to really develop a sense of really sticking with something. I think almost any activity that you put your heart and soul in is really going to be an enriching activity. But if you want an early exposure to say, is working with people in one of their most vulnerable, states, is that one something that maybe potentially for me? There may be opportunities, and they're opening up a little bit now. For the last 2 years, I'll say they were relatively closed for many people in terms of getting experiences in the hospitals as, volunteers to sort of help behind the scenes. Sometimes maybe at the Children's Hospital, being able to, to assist in what we call child well-being, and to just even, just volunteer to play the piano or to do an instrument during these difficult times at a nursing home. And so those are things that you can do that are opening up a little bit more. And of course, I say for Stanford, we want people to get involved in the scientific and more research oriented aspects. There are actually summer programs that expose high school students to medicine. We have some here at Stanford, and they're generally available that you can look up online. So yeah, all of those can be really helpful to help to guide you toward this kind of career.
Very good. Thank you. Janelle, there's a couple specific questions to you. I'm going to give you two, so maybe we could keep the answer a little bit short. The first is that it's been noted that it's good to have hobbies and interests. What was the one thing that you think in high school or college that you carved time out for that really helped you find life balance and helped you pursue your dream?
Definitely. I think one thing, I was very involved with cheerleading since I was in middle school, was in cheerleading. I was a cheer captain in high school for 2 years, and that took up a lot of time, but that gave me so much joy, dancing and performing and coming up with choreography with my friends during the week. And it was a lot of responsibility, but I loved it, loved being at the games. I miss it so much. Even in college, I still carved out time for it. I took hip hop class and a couple of dance classes in college to keep it up. And now in med school, we'll still make time for that every so often, but that was something that gave me a lot of joy. It was kind of my sport. I went to gymnastics like a few times a week and really enjoyed that. And church as well. I was also very involved with my church growing up, and that was a different way to volunteer. Like Dr. Gibbs was saying, there's like medicine adjacent things. So volunteering at church too gave me a lot of joy, and I also felt was great. And those two things, maybe not specifically going towards medicine, but being like cheer captain gave me a lot of skills about responsibility and how to work with a team, how to be creative. And I think that is really great. So find things that you enjoy and give you passion, and in high school especially, just enjoy yourself and do things you love. Find what excites you, and then I think those skills translate, as a doctor too, just being able to talk to people, things like that.
Fantastic. We've had a couple questions about what majors our speakers had today. So for everyone's information, Dr. Gibbs was a chemistry major at the University of Delaware, and Janelle was a biology major at the University of Texas. Janelle, one question back to you. This is always a hard one. I think that someone in your position is asked. When you look back at high school and when you were following your dream, looking back now, is there something that you would have done differently, or one specific piece of advice that you'd give to our young audience today?
Yeah, I was just reflecting. I think everyone who's here on the Zoom call is doing amazing right now, thinking about medical school at this time. I think it's the best thing you can do. For me, I was in a very small town, didn't know any doctors in my family. I didn't know anyone who had gone to medical school. I think there was one person in the history of my town who had ever become a doctor. And so it just seemed like a really daunting idea. I never had a dream school that I wanted to be at. So if you told me in high school that I would be here at Stanford as a Knight Hennessy Scholar, would not have believed it. I just had no really big dreams. So, but it changed. I think I started to think, my mom and my sister told me, like, why not you? That's like my life motto now. I was like the spelling thing that you mentioned, being state champion. I was competing. I was kind of okay at it. But then I made it to state and I was like, I'm just happy to be here. And my mom and my sister were like, no, someone's going to win. It should be you. Like, why not you? And I was like, oh, okay. So then I worked even harder at it. So I think, like, why not me? I can do these things. So I think that's one thing that in high school, it took a while for me to understand. But once I had that mindset, why not me? I didn't really have an idea or an end goal, but I thought, I want to be a doctor. But right now I'm just going to work really hard. I graduated first in my class in high school. I worked really hard at the spelling thing and then succeeded at that, and cheerleading, and whatever you do, just work, just try your best and think, why not me? Someone's going to be at Stanford Medical School. Why not me? And I think just like set those goals really high. And if your dreams don't scare you, they're not big enough. And that's what I told myself, especially coming from like an isolated place, like pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, dreaming a little bit big, setting those goals and thinking what steps are necessary to get there. What can I do now as a high school student, which I think you guys are doing a great job. What can I do in college that will set me up for the next step? And just, yeah, why not you? Just be confident, believe in yourself. And I'm really excited, yeah, for y'all's future in medicine.
Thank you, Janelle. We were talking about majors, people that have pursued. One of my co-astronauts who flew many times was a music major in college. So it doesn't, there aren't all these formulas that you can follow. On that subject, Dr. Gibbs, can you tell us about the value that you put on AP, number of AP tests and scores? And also, does it really affect a person's career, which medical school they attended?
Yeah, those are good questions. Firstly, I'll say that with regard to the AP courses and things of that nature, that one is really going to be assessed at the level of your undergraduate acceptance. And so, but, you know, that one typically shows someone who is proactive about really learning a subject matter at a higher level. And so I would encourage it and take as many AP courses as you can as a high school student. And that usually gives you a sense of more in-depth information in those various subjects. I'm always inspired by our students here, like Janelle and others. I'll tell you that it doesn't matter really where you start from. It's really what you use with your resources to get to where you are. We have a student who just published during the pandemic a book, and I just picked it up myself. Grace Lee, who wrote a novel during the pandemic and going to med school. Janelle just talked about the experience that she'll have at CNN and many of our other students, and you'll notice our students have a bit of fun. I will recommend the sort of YouTube video that our students put together recently with a dance parody, and that's that kind of camaraderie that happens. Now, Stanford is not the only medical school in the country, and many medical schools will be selecting and training amazing individuals. And I had mentioned that the alignment of mission is what's really important. There are going to be some medical schools that are going to be a better fit for certain individuals, and they will train absolutely fabulous physicians. Stanford will train fabulous physicians. So if you're in medical school, perhaps anywhere, you're likely to become a fabulous physician because, like I mentioned, hey, they have to all kind of go through some of the similar things, take the similar examinations at the very end. And I always say that who do you call the last person in their medical school class? You call them doctor. The thing is, this is a tough journey, and anyone who gets through this process will be fabulous.
Fantastic. Couldn't agree more. And in the astronaut corps, we have people from 50 different universities. And some of those people went to junior college first. Eileen Collins is perhaps our most famous woman astronaut. She went to junior college first before becoming the first woman to land a United States space vehicle. Dr. Gibbs, we asked Janelle a tough question. We have time for maybe one or two more questions here, but I'll ask it to you. Is there something in your life that you found you made a mistake and it would be something that you learned from, and some advice that would flow to our attendees today?
Well, I would say I'm not sure whether or not this is necessarily a mistake, but I would say that in the current era, I would have probably approached my pursuit of medicine just a little bit differently. I did not know anyone, and no one had pursued this path for me. But a little bit unlike Janelle, I was like really, really focused in a particular area. And I was probably very, very overly serious. I would smell the roses a little bit more along the journey. And I ended up applying to medical school, having not even known what my Mcat score was because I took it so late. So I would have done that a little bit differently, but it worked. But but I would say in this current era, and particularly with the competitiveness and the sorts of experiences that all of our students need to have, I'd do that a little bit differently in 2022. But I've enjoyed my entire journey, but that one's just on reflection. I might have smelled the roses a little bit more.
Oh, so many opportunities in life. Well, with that, we'll end our event today with just a couple of closing comments. One is thank you again to our organizers. You can reach them at communityoutreach@stanford.edu. That's the email address that was just sent at the chat again. Remember, gratitude in life is incredibly important. So I hope you'll show your gratitude to those who organized the event, and also to Dr. Gibbs and Dr. to-be Chavez. Remember to take notes along the way to set audacious goals. We're so proud of you for taking time today with us. And with that, we send best wishes to all of you as you pursue your audacious goals that you love. All the best to you, all of you.
The preceding program is copyrighted by the Board of Trustees of the Leland Stanford Junior University. Please visit us at med.stanford.edu.